Good evening, y'all, and welcome to this edition of History and Highballs, a brief history of the art of falconry. My name is Stacy, and I handle adult education here at the museum. So whenever you join us for one of these History and Highballs programs, you and I get to virtually spend the evening together, listening to some incredible stories about North Carolina places and people and what makes our state so special. If you enjoy tonight's program, we invite you to head over to the museum's website at ncmuseumhistory.org, where you can learn more about our upcoming programs, exhibits, and digital resources. This is also where you can find more information about joining our North Carolina Museum of History Associates. Our associates and foundation provide crucial funding and support to the museum, which, in addition to many other things, helps make programming like this evening's event possible. We would like to thank those of you who donated funds towards this evening's program. We continue to do our best to keep our programs free to attend, but there are costs associated with keeping our series going. And we just want to thank you all so much for your continued generous support of the museum. A few quick housekeeping items for this evening. We ask that you please keep your mics muted throughout the entirety of the program, and to please type any questions that you have for our guest speaker into the chat function located at the bottom center of your screen. At the end of the program, our intern Savannah will ask our speaker as many of your questions as time allows. So it's my honor to introduce and welcome this evening's speaker, Jeff Curtis, falconer and owner of Curtis Wright Outfitters. Jeff found his love for raptors back in college, and he is now a licensed North Carolina falconer. He has a passion for this ancient art that he loves to share with others. There's nothing like handling and flying a bird of prey and seeing these magnificent creatures up close. For most people interested in falconry, making a commitment to becoming a licensed falconer is unrealistic and not possible. It is Curtis Wright Outfitters' mission and goal to offer a glimpse into this ancient and mysterious sport. So Jeff, I'm going to turn things over to you. Welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, how are y'all?
There you are. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm going to try to, like Stacey said, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of falconry, the little bit of the history of it. I've also brought a couple of my birds, 3 of them, so I'll be pulling them out partway through all of this and telling you a little bit about some of the birds of prey that I fly. Behind me, that is actually a Roger Tory Peterson print of his peregrine falcons, and that one there is done by Nolan Haas, and it's a head of a red-tailed hawk. And some of the equipment back here, I'll show you a little bit of that. So falconry is actually hunting with birds of prey. So when I go out hunting, I don't take out a rifle or a shotgun or a bow. I take out falcons, hawks. As falconers, we can also use eagles and owls. That relationship between humans and birds of prey, we believe, is about 6,000 years old, which makes it the second oldest working relationship between humans and animals. So the oldest would be the dog, and then this, and then horses. But when you start to wrap your head around falconry and you think about the relationship we have with birds of prey and compare it to our relationships with our dogs, it's very, very different. All of our dogs are domesticated wolves. And being domesticated, they are going to have a hard time surviving on their own. They need the human there to put the kibble in the bowl. Birds of prey, we have never been able to domesticate them. The 4 birds that I fly, they are all captive bred and they are tamed and they are trained, but that does not mean domestication. So my birds don't need me for survival. As an example, one of the birds I'll be pulling out, Hoppy Boy, he's a Harris's hawk. He has killed 13 squirrels on outings that we do with the public. So he still has that instinct to hunt and to kill and to eat, and he doesn't need me for that. Secondly, your relationship with your dog is a pack animal. So it actually wants to be with you. It wants to be in your collective and in your pack. Birds of prey are solitary for the most part. We believe that a lot of them breed for life, so they'll be with their mate unless something tragic happens. But beyond that, there's not a social structure with these birds. So when I go and get out one of my birds and turn it loose to free fly it, the relationship that I have with my birds is food based. They don't really want to be with me. There's not that collective. You don't even have to feed your dog and it's still going to want to be in your pack. These guys, unless they're a little bit hungry and I offer them food, they are not going to come back to us. We think that falconry started in the Middle East, as best we can place it. And it's hard to place falconry exactly how old it is and where exactly it happened and started, because most of it just has to do with some pieces of leather. So a leather leash, don't worry about the swivel there, a pair of leather jesses, and out you go to get a bird to practice falconry. Well, leather can deteriorate very quickly in the environment and the elements, so we're not sure exactly, but we think it started in the Middle East. And I always like to tell people, just stop for a minute and imagine if you were the person 6,000 years ago that invented falconry. So you're sitting in your desert campsite in the Middle East. You're the one that sees a falcon streak through the sky and grab a bird, and your aha moment is, I think I'll trap that falcon. I'll tame it and train it and send it out to kill stuff. And then whatever it kills, I will take that food from that predator and I'll feed my family. What could possibly go wrong? But it has lasted a very long time. As it spread out of the Middle East, we believe that Attila the Hun actually used falconers to feed his conquering armies. So they would make camp, they would send the falconers out, they would collect food and hunt other ways as well, and then bring that food back to the soldiers. It got to England, as best we can tell, about 750 AD. It is known as the Sport of Kings. And the interesting thing in England, it was actually tied to the caste system. So there was a chart that showed your ranking in society and what bird you could fly. The King of England could fly the golden eagle, and the peasant could fly a kestrel. And a kestrel is a falcon. These are peregrines up here. So a falcon a lot smaller than the peregrine falcon. And the biggest thing the kestrel is killing are mice and starlings. The golden eagle can kill a deer. And in Mongolia, they're used to hunt wolves. So the king thought he was more important and he had a bigger bird. The king's falconer actually had the third seat of importance at the banquet hall. Unfortunate for him, because I know this is called highballs in history, but unfortunate for the king's falconer, he could only consume 3 alcoholic beverages in the evening because he had to be sober enough to attend to the birds if he was called away. It got to the United States in the late 1800s, early 1900s. We started regulating it here in the 60s, and it was a federal permit to start with. So it was with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. That continued to be a federal permit up until about 15 years ago, and it is now falconry is now a state license. There's different levels, so we all have to start out as an apprentice falconer in the U.S. We are tested by our state. There's a written test. Then state biologists come out and they actually inspect our facilities that we build for our birds. And then at that point, if we pass both of those, we become an apprentice. And we work under another falconer for 2 years, for the 2 years of that apprenticeship. You have a bird during that entire time. You are actually practicing falconry. I have a falconer apprentice right now, and she has a wild red-tailed hawk she's been working with for a couple of years, for about a year. So she has about 9 months to go now. and then she'll move to the next level, which is general class falconer. We're there for 5 years, and then after that, you move on to master class falconer. And we can have different numbers of birds and different types of birds. Typically, the first bird that we work with as apprentices is a red-tailed hawk. They seem to tame pretty easily, and they're a pretty hardy hawk. But it's good that we have all these regulations. I love birds to death. The people part I kind of tolerate, because I don't think we humans really know when to say enough is enough. Trapping a wild hawk is not hard. Keeping it healthy and alive in an enclosure for any length of time can be a complicated process. And, we humans would all go out and go, oh, I think this is super cool. I want to get a hawk. I want to get a falcon. And we need to maintain that wild population, and we need to take care of it. So there needs to be responsibility in all of this. We don't just go to Amazon and buy one of these birds. There's a lot of training, and there's passing down of the history and the techniques that are used in this whole sport. And to explain a little bit, if we were to go out on a hunt, the human in the relationship typically plays the role of the dog. So if I was hunting one of my Harris's hawks, we would be going for rabbits or squirrels. Likewise, if I was hunting with a red-tailed hawk, we'd be hunting rabbits and squirrels. My job would be to try to flush that prey for the bird. So it's actually a partnership with our birds. We would release one of these birds, they'd go up into a tree, we would start working our way through the woods, beating the bushes, trying to flush the prey, and our bird would follow us tree to tree, expecting us to do our part to flush prey for them. Once we flush that rabbit, that bird would come in and kill it, and then we would go to the bird and at some point trade them off of that kill. 6,000 years ago, that rabbit would then go into the cook pot, and that's what you would feed your family. My wife and I do not eat a lot of rabbit and squirrel, so when my birds kill, we pop it in the freezer and cut it up and feed it to them later on. So it can be a complicated relationship and partnership that we have with these birds. And depending on what you're hunting for, that criteria, you would then base what bird you would want to get and to hunt with. Some of the equipment, it's always kind of neat. The hood, and each of the two birds I'm going to pull out in a minute will have their hoods on, and we'll take that off. But that covers the head, the eyes of the bird. The beak would come through just like that, where my finger is. Eyes are covered here and here, top knot to hold on to it to put it on and off. And that actually calms our birds. Falconers have been hooding birds for thousands and thousands of years. Then there is the gauntlet. Sorry about that. The gauntlet, leather glove. This one happens to be 3 layers of cowhide on top. And I'll tell you a little bit about why that's so thick when we pull out the Harris's hawk. And then we've got the falconers, the game bag. You're putting tidbits in there, also other dead things to try to get your bird back at the end of the day. And then we use this guy. This is modern telemetry here. So that's actually a receiver. Because the 4 birds that I'm working with right now are captive bred birds, they're on a federal permit that I hold with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. We have to put small transmitters on them, and we have to do everything we can to get them back at the end of the day. So that has to do with tracking them. Ancient telemetry are these guys. So falconers have been putting bells on their birds also for thousands of years. And the bells help us locate our birds. When one of my hawks kills a rabbit or squirrel, they're typically taking that kill and they're trying to hide with it in the bushes. Since they kill with their feet, then the feet are moving, and so we can hear the bell. If we don't see exactly where they went into the woods, hear that bell and go in. And take the prey from the bird, but then also get our bird back at that point. So that since this is a food-based relationship, you can't let them eat too much of a kill, because then at that point, they're not going to be hungry enough to come back to us. So we have scales, we're weighing our birds, we're actually weighing how much we feed them. And when we're training a new bird, whether it's trapped or captive bred, it takes about 3 to 5 weeks to have that bird free flying and coming back to us as a falconer. So it all starts within an enclosure, and that's where we're trying to get the bird to trust us, to take food from us, from the gloved hand, from where the gauntlet, from the gloved hand. Once they start to take that food, then we have them hop to us within the enclosure, fly within the enclosure, and then we move outside. And at that point, we're flying on a creance, which is a long tether, and we're flying 10 feet and 20 feet and 50 and 100. And then eventually you feel comfortable and confident enough to take the creance off, release your bird, and hope that they come back. And the first free flight is always a little daunting. We hold our breath a lot and hope that they come back. What I do with the public, Stacy was talking, we actually give the public an opportunity to work with and handle our birds, and that's why I have the federal permit. And to train them to that can take a little bit longer. Not everyone out there looks like me, so we have to train them to folks that are different heights, different hair lengths, hats and sunglasses and everything, and that can take probably 2 to 3 months. So I'm going to pull out Pisgah here. He is our peregrine falcon. Hang tight. There he is, and that's the bird that's also in the Roger Tory Peterson print behind us. I'm going to pull his hood off. So while he was in his box, he was sitting quite content, and he was actually up on 1 foot when I just pulled him out. And as they're on one foot, we're always looking for things to make sure that they're calm and content. And the up on 1 foot is their sleeping posture and just kind of life is good and hanging out. So the peregrine falcon, these guys are the fastest animals on the planet. We have clocked them at about 250 miles per hour, and that is in their dive, or what we call as falconers, their stoop. And these rascals are bird hunters. So I'm going to try to hold him up here, and hopefully he doesn't poop on me. But you can see those toes. They're very long and skinny, and he has a beautifully sharp talon on the tip of each of them. So Pisgah is going to circle and gain altitude above another bird, and he's going to come in at his dive, and that's where he's going to hit about a couple 100 to 250 miles per hour. And he's actually trying to grab a smaller bird in midair. So if he's hunting a pigeon, a dove, or a quail, he's going to bind to that bird with those long toes and the talon on the tip of each of them. It's kind of like Velcro. He'll then take that bird to the ground. If the impact of a couple 100 miles an hour didn't kill the bird, which it typically does, if it didn't though, once he gets on the ground with his beak, he snaps the neck of the bird. So the peregrine falcon can kill very quickly and very efficient. The common name for this guy is a duck hawk. He's not a hawk, he's a falcon. But Pisgah weighs in at about 1.25 pounds, and he can take out a 2.5 to 3 pound duck. Now he can't hold on to that. He can't grab that in midair. The physics of that doesn't work. So he gains altitude above the duck, comes in at his dive, hits a couple 100 miles an hour. And then as he approaches the duck, he balls up that foot into a fist, and he actually punches the duck in the head in flight. He'll then follow that duck to the ground. Again, if it's not dead, he'll snap the neck of it. He will have an all-you-can-eat duck buffet. And you can see he likes to pick at everything. That's what falcons do. He doesn't understand he's connected, but falcons just pick at everything. I'm going to try to show you his nose. It's going to be a little weird. He doesn't know computers. But if you look at the nose, it's the hole on top of the beak, on the cere, the yellow part. There's a little nodule in there. And that nodule is the start of a nautilus type chamber. And it serves as a baffle system. So at 250 miles per hour, you have to be able to regulate the airflow entering your lungs. Otherwise, you're going to explode. So that actually slows and regulates airflow, that he's not a puff of feathers a poop of feathers at high speed. I'm not an engineer, but I've taken them out and they've handled and flown my birds, and they've explained to me that we use something very similar to his nose and that baffle system in jet engines, because air passes so fast through a jet engine it would stall it. So we did baffles to slow it down, and now we get to fly. Oh, he's going to rouse now. He should shake up almost. He'll shake out those feathers sometimes. That's another sign of contentment. And now we get to fly all over the world. This guy is about, there we go. This guy will be 4 years old this spring. My wife and I got him when he was 4 months old from a breeder in Southern California. And there's a long story behind the peregrine falcons in the early 80s and DDT, and there were less than 50 breeding pairs back in 82 because of what DDT did that caused the females to produce less calcium. But they've come back, their numbers have come back really, really well. So I am going to put him away. We're going to hood him up, and then I'm going to pull out Hoppy Boy, my Harris's hawk. So we tighten that over his head. The cords on the back are called the braces. He'll shake his head a little bit, make sure all the feathers are all arranged. I'll put him in his box, and he's going to fall asleep. So hang tight just for a second. We're going to do a quick switch of birds. Right. So this guy is a Harris's hawk. Let me get his hood off. Here we go. So his name is Hoppy Boy. All my birds are named for beer. Pisgah is not our mountain or national forest, but the brewery. This is Hoppy Boy, a beer out of Colorado, and so forth and so on. He's a Harris's hawk, Harris apostrophe. Edward Harris was friends of John J. Audubon, also gave him some money. So Audubon renamed the Louisiana hawk after his friend and named it the Harris's hawk. These birds are indigenous to the Southwest. Texas, Arizona, New Mexico is where you would find them in the wild. Characteristics about all these birds: eyesight that is incredible. Hoppy Boy can see a mouse about 3 football fields away. Pisgah is seeing another bird prey for himself at about 1.5 miles away. They all have that hooked beak that is for ripping meat apart. There are no vegetarians or vegans in their world. They are only meat eaters. So if you have seen a hawk at your bird feeder, it is not eating the bird seed at your now hawk. And then if you look at his feet, it is a heavier, thicker toe, a larger talon. So human beings, if we are shaking hands, can generate about 20 to 30 pounds per square inch in our grip strength. This hawk can generate 200 to 400 pounds per square inch at the tip of that talon. That's why the gauntlet needs to be a little bit thicker so that he doesn't puncture through that. And these guys are mainly hunting rodents. So rabbit and squirrel, they're going to come in at about 40 to 45 miles an hour. As they approach, they're going to kick out their feet, and they're trying to puncture the prey with those talons and hit a vital organ. Like I said, this guy is my squirrel hunter. So he grabs a squirrel, usually by the head, and drives the back talon into the brain. So sorry to gross anybody out. but it kills the squirrel pretty quickly. And it also keeps the squirrel from biting off one of his toes. The Harris's hawks are unique in that they're the only hawk species in the world that we know of that are actually social. So I said earlier, birds of prey are solitary. These guys actually can live in a pack, and they actually hunt cooperatively like wolves. So if you go out west, you could find 8 of them living in a collective. If the 8 birds start to squawk when they see a jackrabbit run by, the rabbit's going to hear it and take cover. So we think they use that tail with that white band on the base of it to communicate. The rabbit would go by, Hoppy Boy would shake his tail saying, I'll go to the right side. Another Harris would shake its tail saying, I'll go to the left. And they'll actually flush prey for one another. And working together as a collective, they've been known to take a jackrabbit up to about 7 pounds. And this guy is only weighing in at about 1.5 pounds. So it's amazing to think how strong they are and how light in weight that they are. This guy is, he'll be turning 7 this year. We got him when he was also 4 months old from a breeder in Georgia. And he's full of spit and vinegar. In the wild, living 5 to 10 years, and then in captivity, the oldest Harris's hawk lived to be 30. And I'm not sure I said on the peregrine, they lived in the wild the same 10 to 15, and the oldest peregrine was 26 in captivity. So we don't usually come out at 7 o'clock. So he's looking around going, you pulled me out of the box. Why aren't I getting a mouse or something to munch on? So, and he doesn't come to my place of business. I'm at my shop. All right, we're gonna hood him up real quick and put him back in his box. And hang hold on, buddy. Hang on 1 second, everybody. And Stacy, if I have a second, I'd love to get my owl. I have a barn owl who is just the cutest. He is in the other room because he's making a lot of noise, but give me not even 10 seconds. I'll be right back, y'all. Don't go anywhere.
Absolutely. Take your time. Oh my gosh, what a beauty.
Yeah, everybody loves to see Oscar. So Oscar is a barn owl. And if you look at that face, it sort of looks like a heart. So we think, oh, how cute and how sweet. He is as much of a predator as my hawks and my falcon. But if you look at his face a little differently, think about your outer ears. If you were to cut them off and glue them together, that is also the shape of his facial disc. And that facial disc serves the same purpose as our outer ears. It funnels sound to his actual ears. His actual ears are just behind the eyes in this area. If we could move all the feathers and take a look at those ears, his ear opening is nearly as large as ours, and he weighs a whopping 1 pound. His ears are also asymmetrical. One is higher on the head than the other, and one is tilted slightly more forward. So that causes sound to hit each ear at a split-second difference. So we have to see something to really know where it is. He can actually pinpoint where a mouse is out in the leaf litter without ever even seeing it. Of all the animals humans have studied so far, barn owls have the best hearing. You look at his coloration, hope he doesn't poop on the table. He is absolutely gorgeous. You can see this is beautiful camouflage. If another owl or a hawk were coming at him from behind, that would blend in with a tree trunk or the leaf litter. If you look at that white belly, that sort of sticks out like a sore thumb. But if you are the mouse on the ground looking up at him, that breaks up his silhouette against the sky. So he has dual camouflage from predator and from prey. trout, sharks, penguins, a lot of animals have that dual camouflage. And this little rascal's 3 years old, coming up in May. We've had him since he was 2 months old. He's been a lot of fun. He is nocturnal, so as the sun is going down, he starts to get a little more excited. He also does programs with our guests. It's always a challenge to fly him in the afternoons because he doesn't see as well during the day, but he hears everything. So he gets very distracted by all of the sounds. And they're not as long lived. In the wild, they're living to be 5 to 7 years old. And in captivity, the oldest barn owl was 11. Because they have a shorter life cycle, they have larger clutches, and clutches is just the collection of eggs that are laid at a time. Hawks and falcons are typically 2 to 3 eggs per clutch. These guys are 5 to 7 eggs per clutch. He's very curious about all of this. So I can talk about birds and falconry all day long, but I think I wanted to give you a general overview of what we do of falconry, what we do with our birds, and then tell you a little bit about these 3 species. So happy to do questions if we want to move on to that, or whatever you think. Or Savannah. Can't hear you, so.
How about now? I took my headphones out. Okay,
Gotcha.
amazing. Okay, I'm Savannah. I have a ton of questions from people in the chat. So you said that to become a master falconer, there's a process including an apprenticeship. Can you elaborate on that and what that's like, and like the kind of things you learn along the way?
Yeah. So to even become an apprentice, we have to pass a written test. So there's a ton of books that we read. There's not really one study guide. California puts out a study guide that is very, very helpful for all the other states, because most states just adopted federal law 15 years ago when they started regulating it themselves. So you can learn a lot of knowledge from all the books, but then working with another falconer and seeing all, how do we handle the birds? How do we use the equipment? How do we keep the birds safe and healthy? You can't really see all that in a book. So there's a lot of time spent between the sponsor and the apprentice. And that is a 2-year process that you have to do the apprenticeship. There's not a number of hours that we have to do with our sponsors or with our apprentices, which I think there probably should be. But anybody who's sponsoring an apprentice is going to put a good amount of time in with that person, because that person can legally trap a wild bird, and we all want to take really good care of them. And then to go from general or apprentice to general, you have to be recommended by 2 falconers to go to that level, and then just do your 5 years, and then you become a master class falconer. Different numbers of birds, different types of birds that we can fly during all those different stages.
Several people are also asking about their lifespans and why they vary so much between different birds.
So I don't know why barn owls are shorter lived than the other 2 over here, because when you think 5 to 7 for them and 10 to 15 for the hawk and the falcon is average. I don't know why barn owls are shorter lived. The reason there's such a difference between what they live in the wild versus captivity, it's almost double in captivity. And that's because where they live with my wife's in my house, they're in a protected space. So predators cannot get at them to kill them. Also, humans kill a lot of these critters. So if you think about it, rodent hunters, when we throw McDonald's on the side of the road, or we throw an apple core on the side of the road, mice eat that. These guys eat mice. They never see our SUVs going 80 miles an hour. Well, I don't let my birds fly around interstate. So that's one reason they're going to be protected. Also, I'm looking after them for physical stuff to take care of that. We have an avian vet that they see. So all of that can really cause their life to be prolonged. but I'm not sure why, Hoppy's going to live twice, 3 times as long as this guy.
What is the daily routine taking care of these? Do they go out and fly every day?
So these birds are flying 5 days a week. They are part of my business. So we actually take them out with guests. They get to handle and actually have the birds fly to them. So these birds get a lot of flight time. We're cleaning enclosures. We're thawing out food. We're weighing out food to know how much to feed them. We have to take care of equipment, which we make a lot of our own with the anklets that he has on here and the jesses. So you're maintaining the equipment with these birds. And then we try to vary their diet as much as we can, so that keeps them healthier. And then the taming process, when we're first working with a bird, we spend a lot of time getting them used to this right here, sitting on the glove. But once we have a bird tamed and trained, you don't have to handle them every single day after that. There's some, I don't fly my birds on Wednesdays and Sundays, and we all take a break from each other. They probably like it. I do still weigh them and feed them according to what they need. So that's, and we're fortunate. My birds they're strong and healthy. They get to fly a whole lot.
So you said earlier that usually when you release them for the first time, it's kind of nerve-wracking, wondering if they're going to fly back. Have you ever had one that didn't return to you?
I've had one bird, Sam Adams. He's not here tonight. He spent the night out one time on me. We were doing an outing with a group of folks and something threw him off and he did not come home. We had his transmitter on him. We knew exactly where he was, but he just decided to spend the night out. And I've had a red-tailed hawk where I made a good apprentice mistake. I didn't lose the bird, but we call the final training flight with a new bird. We call them into the lure. So it's a leather patch with a chunk of squirrel or something big on it. And I didn't secure the squirrel to the lure. So he actually took the big chunk of squirrel and took off into a tree. So as I'm standing there realizing my bird is eating a third of a squirrel and his weight is shooting up, he did take off, but then he actually came back. So I haven't lost one, knock on wood.
So how exactly did you get interested in falconry initially? And have you loved birds your whole life, or did that come later?
I did rehabilitation work with birds of prey in college. We had a club on campus. I went to Furman University, and we had a club. It wasn't my major. I was a psych major, but we had a group, and the students would clean the enclosures. We would exercise the birds. I actually made some rudimentary falconry equipment so we could fly and exercise the birds. That way, when we were able to release them, they were stronger and more likely to survive. And I got a couple books and read up on it and just thought, oh my goodness. And the experience with those birds, I did that for all 4 years. I just loved it. And I thought one day I'll become a falconer, but as in all of our passions, life gets in the way. And I've been licensed for 10 years now as a falconer.
Do you have any advice to someone beginning their career in falconry for newbies?
Yep. Your hardest thing is going to be to find a sponsor. And part of that is, I don't quite get it. All of us have to have been sponsored, but we're not all willing to sponsor, which is, I don't think that's paying it forward very well, but anyways. But finding a sponsor is kind of the tricky part. I think in North Carolina, and don't quote me on this reg, but I think you have to be within 200 miles of your sponsor. Maybe it's 100. So finding someone close enough, but then it's also finding someone that's willing to spend 2 years with you. I mean, there's a commitment there. I've got 2 sponsors. I've got 2 apprentices right now, and I've had other folks approach me, and sometimes I think to myself, I don't think I want to spend 2 years with you. But we all get along differently, so it is what it is. And I always tell people, if you can go to one of the meetings, there's the North Carolina Falconers Guild. I think they're based out of Raleigh. Go and start meeting some falconers. Also, don't tell them you want to be a falconer on the first meeting. They hear that all the time and they won't take you seriously. So do that approach slowly when you do get to meet some other falconers. Offer to help clean out some enclosures. That's always.
If someone is completely new to it, which is better to get, trapped birds or bred?
Well, I don't let my apprentices do a captive bred bird for their first bird. So the beauty of doing a wild bird is we can capture that bird, we can tame it and train it, and then we can actually release it again back to the wild after a year or two. And that can actually help the breeding population. We're only allowed to take immature birds, sub 1 year old, so they haven't mated yet. And 80% die their first year in the wild. And I've had 8 wild birds. So whatever the math is, of those 8 birds, 80% probably wouldn't have made it. Well, if I hunt with them and increase their hunting skills, get them through that first year or two, they're going to be more likely to survive in the wild as they get older. The issue with captive bred birds, we can never release them, and that's a federal law. So at the end of the day, my birds, I've got to get them back. Today, Hoppy took off on me, and he was gone for an hour and a half on the Biltmore estate, where I also do their falconry. And I was tracking him, and he just didn't want to come back. So to have the possibility of releasing that bird, I think is a really good thing. And plus, we're sort of keeping the tradition of falconry alive, because it's always been trapping and taming and training wild birds. So I think that's important for an apprentice to learn.
Do the birds get stressed when they see each other? Like if the owl saw the hawk, is that what the hood is for?
That's part of it. So right now he's looking, their 2 boxes are right down here. They're in their boxes. He can't see them, but he's very curious about what's in the boxes. Pretty much all of my birds would kill each other. They don't play friendly. They're predators. So there's a thing, they have to watch out. And unfortunately, this guy's at the bottom of the pecking order. At 1 pound, he would be toast with all these guys. So the hoods do. If I could have Pisgah and Hoppy Boy each on a glove, both hooded, and they wouldn't know they were there. So the hoods keep them calmed down and from being less stressed. Yeah.
So when you're selecting birds to use, are there any specific qualities that you look for when choosing a breed?
Well, cute is important. No. So the Harrises work well with what we do with the public because they are a social bird. I have to look for captive bred birds when I do programs. If I'm just looking for myself for a hunting bird, that's different criteria than for when I work with the public. I wouldn't personally do accipiters with the public. So the Coopers, Sharpshin, and Gossicks, they're very high-strung birds, and I don't think it would really be fair to them to do a whole lot of public exposure, because to me, I think it can stress them out. With that said, I'm sure there's falconers that do this with those birds with the public, and there would be individuals within that species that could do the public thing a little bit better. So Harrises are wonderful. And there's not a lot of breeders of red-tailed hawks, but red-tailed train and tame beautifully. The barn owl, these guys are, they're so much fun with the public. Just they're so beautiful and so personable. And the peregrine is not a first bird for anybody, but as you get up through the ranks, then we start flying them. We consider them the long wings, and they don't fly to a glove. These other birds actually fly to a glove for food. The peregrine just flies laps around open fields and valleys, and then we stoop them to a lure.
Cassandra heard that Harris hawks will stack on top of each other in the wild if there's not enough space to perch. Can you verify this?
Yeah, so we're not sure why they stack. I think it's called backstanding or something. we humans love to try to understand it, and I'm one of them as well. So one of the thoughts is there's a lot of prickly cacti, and so one bird gets its footing without getting pricked, the others will stand up on top. Another thought is that they're trying to get a higher vantage point for hunting. So the tallest bird up can see better than the birds down towards the bottom. So if you can get higher and get a higher vantage point. Coming from a psychology background, I think it's trust building. So a bird of prey's most vulnerable spot is right down here at the back. If you come to attack a bird of prey from the front, you have to deal with the talons. So they typically kill each other or try to come in from behind. So I think that they allow each other to stand on each other's back saying, hey, I trust you not to kill me. Take any three of those or make up another one.
There's several questions just about breeding these in general. Somebody's asking, is it difficult to breed such birds?
So I don't have a breeding permit, and that is a separate license. So is bird abatement. Rehab is a separate license. So I purchased mine. I've read some stuff about breeding. It can be an interesting process. Once you get a pair that's mated, they'll go for years and years. But even getting two birds that don't know each other, sometimes the chemistry doesn't work. So you've got to, you have to then keep looking for other birds. So it can be challenging. And of course, we humans love to meddle. So there is some, they're doing some crossbreeding between different types of falcons because, they want the speed of the peregrine, but they want the size of a gerfalcon. So then you can start doing the artificial insemination and all of that kind of stuff. And you have to be licensed and permitted to breed, and that's federal. All my birds have a little band on them. His is actually right down here. It's hard to see probably, that little gold band. And that is actually put on the day that they're hatched. This guy came from a rehab facility. So north of Charleston is the Raptor Center up in Allendale. There's no money in rehab, so to help make money, they do captive breeding, sell these rascals, make some money to then fix injured birds.
How long does a bird of prey remember its training?
I don't know. Because we release them. I've had 7 of my 8 I've released. The 8th one is at home still. And people ask me, I go back and I check on them. I make sure they're, hunting and doing their thing. I would assume they might be more comfortable hunting closer to humans because they've had a year or 2 experience with humans. I've heard other people and falconers say, once you turn them loose, you're a faint memory to them and they just revert back to that wild state. So I'm not sure on that exactly.
Okay, I think that's all the questions we had. This was the most informative presentation I have ever had on falconry. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for this incredible behind the scenes look at the world and art of falconry. And for sharing your birds with us tonight. What a special experience for all of us.
Well, you are very welcome. Thanks for asking me and having me come on board and do this. It was quite enjoyable.
And I believe that in addition to the falconry, you have another part of your business, fly fishing. Is that correct?
Yep, we own a fly fishing store in Weaverville, North Carolina. It's about 10 minutes north of Asheville. We do a full guide service. I think we have about 12 guides right now, and we're all getting keyed up for the new season, for the fishing season. Sell all the equipment, do guide trips. So we love to get people out. We joke that trout don't live in ugly places. So it's a beautiful way to enjoy our creation and surroundings.
So y'all definitely check out Curtis Ray Outfitters if you're interested in falconry and or fly fishing, all these wonderful outdoor activities. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. We hope to see you at our next History and Highballs Grandfather Mountain Highland Games happening Thursday, April 14th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. We hope that you have a wonderful evening and we'll see y'all soon. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.
Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.